Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Listening Practice Hub. My name is Emma, and I am so happy to have you here today. Take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let your mind slow down. In this space, you can improve your English while learning something meaningful and timeless. Today, we explore one of the most famous political books in history, The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli. It is a powerful guide about leadership, power, human behavior, and the difficult world of politics. As you listen, focus on the rhythm of the words and let the ideas flow naturally. You will learn new vocabulary without stress, simply by following the story. So let us begin. Machiavelli wrote The Prince during a period of great conflict. Italy was divided into many small states. Wars, betrayals, and sudden changes of power were common. A ruler could rise in glory one day and fall in a tragic way the next. In this environment, Machiavelli tried to understand what makes a strong leader, how power can be taken, and how it can be protected. His writing is direct, sharp, and often surprising. It breaks traditional ideas of morality and looks at power as it truly is in human society. He starts with a simple idea. All states, all territories, all forms of political power can be placed into two main groups. The first group is hereditary states, which are ruled by a family that has held power for many years. These states are usually stable because people already know the ruling family. They understand how things work and changes are rare. When a prince inherits such a state, he often faces fewer problems. The people are used to the system, and they are less likely to rebel unless the ruler brings a dramatic change or behaves in a very harmful way. The second group is new states. These are places where power has recently changed hands. A prince may gain control through war, through luck, through support from powerful allies, or through his own skill and intelligence. New states are much harder to keep. People are suspicious. Some hope for improvement, while others feel strong loyalty to the old ruler. In this situation, a leader must work carefully, because even a small mistake can create great danger. Machiavelli explains that when someone rises to power in a new state, he must expect difficulties. Old enemies do not disappear easily, and new supporters may expect too much. The prince must observe human behavior with sharp attention. He cannot trust too quickly. He cannot act too slowly. He must understand that people are often driven by fear, ambition, or personal benefit. These forces shape politics more than ideal values. He also describes how leaders gain power in the first place. Some become rulers through their own abilities. These leaders are strong, determined, and skilled in strategy. They know how to act at the right moment. They understand the environment, and they adapt quickly. Other leaders rise to power through luck or through the influence of others. They may seem successful at first, but without strong foundations, their rule becomes weak. It is easy for them to rise, but it is just as easy for them to fall. As Machiavelli continues, he reveals a central idea. A leader must learn to use both law and force. Law belongs to humans. Force belongs to animals. A wise prince knows how to balance both. He must be like a lion, strong and fearsome when necessary. But he must also be like a fox, clever and able to recognize traps before he enters them. A leader who relies only on strength becomes blind to danger. A leader who relies only on cunning becomes weak in moments of crisis. The combination of the two creates stability in a dangerous world. He also explains that change is always difficult for people. When a new leader appears, many feel threatened. Some benefit from the change, but others lose their privileges. Because of this, the prince must act with clarity and firmness. He cannot allow chaos, and he cannot depend only on the goodwill of others. He must create a structure that protects him from both internal and external threats. Machiavelli observes that people often prefer familiar problems over unfamiliar solutions. This is why rulers who try to create new systems face more resistance. It is not because their ideas are bad, but because human beings naturally fear the unknown. A strong leader understands this psychology. He does not blame the people for their fear. Instead, he works to manage the transition in a way that feels stable and predictable. Throughout the early chapters, Machiavelli emphasizes preparation. A prince who enters power must not relax. He must study his land, understand its history, observe the desires of his people, and prepare for every possibility. Power without preparation is like a castle built on sand. It may look impressive, but the first strong wave will bring it down. At the same time, he teaches that failure can come from hesitation. A prince who fears every decision will lose control. In the world of politics, action is often more important than perfection. A leader must study carefully, but when the right moment comes, he must act without fear. Machiavelli introduces these ideas slowly and clearly, giving us a picture of leadership that is realistic, sometimes harsh, and always focused on survival. His goal is not to teach a ruler how to be loved, but how to remain strong in a world filled with danger. And so, with this beginning, the foundation of the prince becomes clear. Understand human nature, understand power, and understand how to hold on to it. Machiavelli moves further into the heart of power, and the picture becomes even clearer. A ruler who enters a new land must understand one essential truth. People judge you not by your intentions, but by the results they see around them. If peace grows, if order is restored, if daily life becomes safe and predictable, they will follow you. But if confusion spreads, or if they feel betrayed, fear and anger will rise quickly. Because of this, the prince must act with purpose from the very beginning. He explains that when a new state is added to a ruler's territory, the wisest thing he can do is live there for a time. When the prince stays close to the people, he hears their concerns, he sees the problems with his own eyes, and he answers danger before it grows too big. A distant ruler loses touch, and enemies use that distance to create whispers and doubts. But a present ruler is harder to deceive and easier to trust. In some cases, however, even presence is not enough. Machiavelli speaks about colonies, small groups of loyal people sent to live in the new land. Colonies are useful because they're not expensive and they create stability among the local population. Only a few people may be harmed by them, and those who are harmed become too weak to fight back. Those who remain are easier to keep satisfied because their daily life becomes more secure than before. Machiavelli describes this as a practical method, not a moral one. It may feel harsh, but in his view, it prevents larger violence later. He also warns that a prince should never trust neutral neighbors. A neighbor who stays silent in times of danger is usually preparing to choose the winning side. If the prince is weak, they will not help him. If he becomes strong, they will resent him. It is better to have clear friends and clear enemies. Neutrality is an illusion that brings more risk than safety. Machiavelli then turns to the subject of conquered lands that share similar culture and language. These are easier to control. People who understand the same customs adapt faster to a new ruler, as long as he respects their traditions. But when the culture is very different, the task becomes harder. In that case, the prince must stay close, build protection around himself, and remove any threat that could challenge his authority. He should also avoid changing their laws or taxes too quickly. Stability makes loyalty easier. He explains that rebellion often happens because of two human emotions: memory and hope. People remember the old ruler, either with affection or resentment, and they hope the new ruler will solve their problems. If the prince fails to satisfy this hope, or if he ignores the memories of the past, trouble begins. Because of this, Machiavelli says that a leader must act early. Small problems are easy to fix, but when they're allowed to grow, they become impossible to control. A wise prince sees danger from far away and stops it before it becomes a storm. Machiavelli also describes leaders who take power through the help of powerful allies, what he calls the arms of others. At first, it seems easy. The ruler does not need to fight hard battles or plan difficult strategies. Someone else opens the door for him. But this kind of power is unstable. A leader who rises because of others depends on their strength, not his own. He becomes like a puppet of those who supported him. If they change their minds or if their power weakens, the prince falls. In contrast, a leader who rises through his own ability builds strength that lasts. He may face hardship at the beginning. He may struggle, fight, and suffer loss. But every difficulty teaches him something. He becomes confident in his skills. He understands how to command soldiers, how to inspire people, and how to navigate danger. His achievements belong to him alone, and when he reaches the top, he stands on a foundation that cannot be taken away easily. Machiavelli gives examples of leaders who faced heavy resistance when they first gained power. People feared them, people doubted them, but the leaders acted with courage and discipline. They made strong decisions, even when those decisions were painful. Over time, the fears disappeared. The state became stable. Their rule became respected. The lesson is simple. Difficulty at the beginning often creates long-lasting strength later. He also explains the danger of leaders who try to create new political systems. People do not like change. They prefer what they already know, even if it is imperfect. When a prince tries to bring new laws, new structures, or new ways of life, he must expect resistance from all sides. Those who benefit from the old system will fight against him. Those who might benefit from the new system will not support him strongly, because they are unsure if the change will truly help them. This creates a lonely position for the prince. But Machiavelli insists that if the change is necessary, The leader must continue with determination. He must rely on force when persuasion fails. If he hesitates, the reform collapses and his enemies grow stronger. Another major idea is the role of cruelty and kindness. Machiavelli is very direct here. He says that cruelty can be used, but only in a careful and strategic way. When cruelty is necessary, it should be applied quickly, all at once, and then stopped. If pain is spread slowly, people will hate the prince and fear the future. But if difficult actions happen in a single moment and then end, people recover faster. On the other hand, kindness should be given slowly and consistently, so people feel it again and again. In his view, this creates a stable emotional environment for the population. He also warns that allowing disorder is far worse than practicing firm, but controlled severity. A ruler who avoids necessary actions because he wants to appear kind will eventually face a larger crisis. And when the crisis comes, he will be forced to act with far more violence than if he had acted early. Machiavelli's message is not about being cruel. It is about preventing chaos, because chaos destroys both the ruler and the people. As he continues, he explains the dangers of relying on the goodwill of the population alone. People admire leaders when times are good, but in difficult moments, admiration disappears. Personal interest becomes stronger than loyalty. For this reason, the prince must create systems, defenses, and alliances that are solid, not emotional. Love is beautiful, he says, but fear is more reliable when it comes to protecting the state. Throughout these chapters, Machiavelli teaches that leadership is not about comfort. It is about responsibility, clarity, and sometimes painful choices. A prince who understands human nature and prepares for danger will stand strong, even when the world around him becomes uncertain. Machiavelli moves deeper into the reality of political power, and his lessons become even more sharp and practical. He explains that a ruler must be extremely careful when dealing with armies. Soldiers are the foundation of security, and without reliable forces, a prince cannot defend his land, protect his people, or maintain order. Machiavelli states clearly that a prince must never rely on mercenary armies. Mercenaries fight for money, not loyalty. They may appear strong in times of peace, but when true danger arrives, they break apart. They run, they betray, or they refuse to fight. Their hearts are not tied to the prince or the land. Auxiliary forces, those borrowed from another leader, are even worse. If they win, the prince becomes dependent on them. If they lose, the prince is destroyed with them. In both cases, he places his fate in the hands of someone else. Machiavelli believes that the only safe army is one built from the prince's own people. Soldiers who fight for their home, their families, and their rulers stand firm in difficult times. They are motivated not by payment alone, but by identity and duty. Auxiliary forces, those borrowed from another leader, are even worse. If they win, the prince becomes dependent on them. If they lose, the prince is destroyed with them. In both cases, he places his fate in the hands of someone else. Machiavelli believes that the only safe army is one built from the prince's own people. Soldiers who fight for their home, their families, and their rulers stand firm in difficult times. They are motivated not by payment alone, but by identity and duty. Machiavelli then turns to the personal qualities of a prince. What does a ruler need to be successful? Is it better to be loved or feared? This is one of the most famous questions in the book. He answers with honesty, not idealism. He says that a prince should desire both love and fear, but because these two rarely come together, it is safer to be feared. Love is voluntary. It is tied to human emotions, which change easily. Fear, however, is rooted in the desire for self-protection. People avoid harming those they fear, not because they want to please them, but because they want to avoid punishment. This creates a more stable form of control. But Machiavelli makes an important point. The prince must avoid hatred. Fear and hatred are not the same. A ruler who is hated faces danger from every direction. People will hide their anger, wait for the right moment, and then strike. So the prince must act in a way that creates respect and caution, not disgust or rage. He must not take property from his people. He must not touch their families or insult their dignity. These actions create deep emotional wounds that grow into rebellion. Fear can exist without cruelty. Strength can exist without unnecessary violence. He also talks about generosity. People love generous leaders, but generosity has a hidden cost. A prince who gives too much must take money from somewhere. If he increases taxes to pay for his generosity, people will hate him. If he stops giving suddenly, people will feel betrayed. And if he continues giving without limits, he becomes weak and poor. So Machiavelli suggests a different path. The prince should be careful with his resources. He should use them wisely and avoid unnecessary gifts. A ruler who is seen as careful, disciplined, and responsible gains long-term respect. He can be generous in rare moments when it truly matters, but he should not make it a daily habit. Next, Machiavelli explains that a prince must learn how to hide his true intentions. Human beings judge by appearances. They do not see the prince's thoughts. They only see his actions. Because of this, the prince must present himself as compassionate, faithful, honest, and kind. But when the survival of the state requires different behavior, he must be ready to act outside of these values. This is not hypocrisy, it is strategy. A leader who always sticks to ideal principles, even when danger grows, risks losing everything. A leader who adapts survives. He describes the world as a place where people often break promises, act selfishly, and lie when necessary. Because of this, the prince must protect himself by learning the same skills. He should keep his word when it benefits the state. But when keeping his word would harm the state, he must be able to change direction without hesitation. Machiavelli believes that the survival of the state is more important than the personal reputation of the ruler. A strong leader focuses on results, not on appearances alone. He continues by exploring the balance between the lion and the fox. A lion is powerful, but cannot avoid traps. A fox is clever, but cannot fight wolves. A prince must be both. He must inspire respect through strength and inspire caution through intelligence. If he uses only one side, he becomes predictable and vulnerable. If he uses both, He becomes a complete leader who understands the complexity of human behavior. Machiavelli warns that a prince must choose his advisors carefully. A wise advisor tells the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. A dishonest advisor tells the prince what he wants to hear. This is dangerous because it creates a bubble of illusions around the leader. He begins to believe in false ideas. He loses touch with reality. The prince should allow advisors to speak openly, but only when he asks them to. He cannot let everyone talk freely at all times. Otherwise, confusion and conflict will rise. He must listen, think deeply, and then make decisions based on his own judgment. A strong prince uses advisors, but is never controlled by them. Machiavelli also explains that a leader must consider fortune, what we can call luck. Fortune controls half of our actions, he says, but the other half is shaped by our choices. A prince cannot control the world completely, but he can prepare for storms. He can study patterns, build defenses, train soldiers, and create structures that reduce the impact of unexpected events. In this way, he turns fortune into a weaker force, not a dominant one. He compares fortune to a violent river. When a river is calm, wise people build walls and barriers. When a storm comes, the river may rise, but it will not destroy everything. Similarly, a ruler must act during peaceful times to prepare for hardship. If he waits until danger appears, it will be too late. As the ideas grow deeper, Machiavelli makes one thing clear. The world of politics demands courage, strategy, and emotional strength. A prince who understands human nature, controls his impulses, and prepares for the unknown becomes powerful not only in action, but also in spirit. Machiavelli continues to guide us through the complex world of leadership, and his voice becomes even more direct and focused. He reminds us that a prince must pay close attention to how people form opinions. Public opinion shapes stability. It shapes trust. It shapes the emotional balance of the entire state. A ruler who ignores reputation risks losing authority, even if his decisions are wise. Because of this, Machiavelli teaches that a prince must guard his image with the same care he guards his territory. He explains that people judge leaders based on simple qualities. If he is brave or weak, if he is wise or confused, if he is consistent or unpredictable. A ruler does not need to be perfect, but he must appear firm, confident, and decisive. Human beings are drawn to leadership that looks stable. When they sense fear or hesitation in the prince, they begin to question his ability. Once doubt spreads, opposition rises. The prince loses control, not because of his actions alone, but because the people no longer believe in his strength. Machiavelli says that a wise ruler should avoid extremes. He should not act with reckless ambition, but he should not be overly cautious. He should avoid cruelty that is unnecessary, but he should also avoid softness that leads to chaos. Balance creates respect. Moderation creates longevity. A prince who learns this balance becomes steady in the eyes of the people. He also speaks about flatterers. Flatterers are dangerous because they feed the prince beautiful lies. They praise him, support him, and make him feel superior, but their praise is empty. They protect their own interests, not the state. A prince who listens to too much praise becomes blind. He begins to trust those who do not deserve trust. Machiavelli warns that this blindness is one of the most common reasons rulers fall. To avoid this trap, the prince must create a system where only trusted advisors can speak freely, and even they should speak only when asked. He must encourage honesty, but control when and how it enters the room. This keeps communication clean and prevents manipulation. The prince must be the one who guides the conversation, not the one who is guided by it. He continues by explaining how fortune tests leaders. Some rulers rise during peaceful times, but fall during trouble because they lack the strength to adapt. Others rise during chaos because they know how to act when the world is shaking. Machiavelli teaches that a prince must develop flexibility. He cannot depend on one single method. When luck changes, he must change with it. When old strategies stop working, he must create new ones. Those who refuse to adapt eventually break. Fortune is not a gentle teacher. It rewards the bold and hurts the passive. Machiavelli says that when opportunity appears, the prince must act quickly. Hesitation allows others to take the advantage. A leader who waits for the perfect moment will watch others rise before him. Strength often comes not from perfection, but from decisive action taken at the right time. The book also explores the emotional burden of power. Machiavelli understands that leadership is not only strategic, it is deeply personal. The prince carries the fears of the people, the pressure of enemies, and the constant responsibility of protecting the state. Because of this, he must build emotional discipline. He cannot allow praise to fill him with pride, and he cannot allow criticism to fill him with despair. His emotions must remain stable, like a calm center in the middle of a storm. The prince's internal strength becomes the foundation of the entire state. Machiavelli then examines how a ruler should maintain control over conquered territories. He explains that cultural and historical differences shape how people respond to new authority. In territories where people are used to being free, they will resist strongly. Freedom is a deep and powerful force. Once people taste it, they do not give it up easily. In such places, a prince must create strong structures to keep the peace. If he fails, the desire for independence will eventually rise again. In regions ruled by a single powerful leader, the situation is different. If the prince removes the former ruler's family and keeps the rest of the population safe, rebellion becomes unlikely. People in these states are used to obedience and structure. They do not have many powerful families competing for control. Because of this, once the prince takes the throne, the land becomes more stable. He also discusses how religion and political institutions influence power. A prince who respects local spiritual traditions gains respect quickly. People feel more comfortable when their beliefs are honored. But a prince who ignores or disrespects them creates silent enemies who may one day become loud ones. Understanding the values of the people is part of understanding human nature itself. Machiavelli warns that princes must avoid becoming too dependent on others, not only in war, but in internal affairs as well. A ruler who allows another person or group to grow too powerful creates a rival who may one day challenge him. This risk appears when the prince rewards someone too generously, or when he trusts someone who later builds influence among the people. A wise prince praises ability but keeps true power in his own hands. He also explains the importance of constant learning. A leader must study history, examine past rulers, and understand the mistakes that destroyed them. History repeats patterns. Human behavior does not change as much as we think. A ruler who studies the past gains a clear map of the future. The prince becomes like a navigator who understands the hidden shapes of the land, not just the surface waves. Machiavelli also emphasizes discipline in daily life. A strong ruler trains his mind and body. He studies maps, strategies, and the geography of his land. He practices with weapons, rides through the countryside, and observes nature closely. Even during peace, he prepares for war. Peace is the time to build strength, not to rest. A prince who waits for danger before training will be defeated before he even begins to fight. As the chapter deepens, Machiavelli presents leadership as a living art. It requires patience, intelligence, courage, and discipline. A ruler must see the people clearly, understand the world honestly, and guide the state with steady determination. Power, in Machiavelli's view, is not a gift. It is a responsibility that demands constant awareness. Machiavelli moves closer to the final lessons of the prince, and his ideas become sharper, more reflective, and more universal. He now looks at the deeper forces that shape political life: fear, loyalty, ambition, and the unpredictable power of fortune. These forces, he says, work together like invisible winds. They can lift a ruler to great heights, or they can push him into sudden ruin. Because of this, a prince must understand these currents with calm attention and steady discipline. He explains that every ruler faces two great enemies: external threats and internal discontent. External threats come from foreign powers, rival states, and ambitious leaders who want to expand their influence. Internal discontent grows from within the city, from jealous nobles, unhappy citizens, or rival families. A wise prince studies both forces at the same time. If he focuses only on foreign dangers, he will be surprised by internal betrayal. If he worries only about internal enemies, he will be defeated by outside aggression. Leadership requires a wide vision, a mind that can observe many things at once. Machiavelli then speaks about the importance of avoiding contempt. A prince must never appear weak, disorganized, or inconsistent. When people lose respect for a ruler, they begin to act with boldness. They test limits. They challenge authority. Slowly, the structure of the state weakens because people no longer feel the weight of leadership. To avoid this, a prince must appear strong even during moments of uncertainty. He must rise early, act decisively, and show confidence in public life. At the same time, the prince must avoid hatred. Hatred grows from injustice, arrogance, and unnecessary cruelty. Machiavelli warns that hatred is more dangerous than open rebellion. Rebellion can be fought. Hatred hides in silence and waits for a perfect moment to strike. A ruler who respects property, protects families, and practices fairness avoids this danger. People may fear him, but they will not hate him, and this balance is essential for long-term stability. He continues by explaining how rulers should deal with conspiracies. Conspiracies happen when small groups believe they can kill the ruler and escape punishment. But Machiavelli says conspiracies rarely succeed unless the prince is hated by the people. If the people support him, conspirators fear that the population will fight back. But if the people are unhappy, conspirators feel protected by public silence. So the prince's best defense against secret plots is not physical protection, though that is necessary, but public goodwill. When the people feel safe, conspiracies die before they begin. Machiavelli then turns to military loyalty again. He explains that a prince who keeps his soldiers disciplined and rewarded maintains control. But rewards must be given with care. If soldiers become too wealthy, they may become ambitious. If they become too poor, they may become resentful. Balance, once again, is the key. A leader must know how to give enough to create loyalty, but not so much that he creates new dangers. Next, he examines the emotional nature of the people themselves. Human beings, he says, are not completely consistent. They admire strength but fear cruelty. They want freedom but also want order. They desire justice but often make decisions based on personal interest. A good prince understands these contradictions. He does not become angry at people for being human. Instead, he learns to work with these emotions, guiding them gently towards stability and cooperation. Machiavelli ends this section by reminding us that great leaders are remembered not only for their victories, but for their ability to adapt. The world changes quickly. Fortune moves like a river. When the current changes direction, the prince must change with it. Actions that once brought success may one day bring failure. Wisdom comes from knowing when to persist and when to transform. Now, Machiavelli offers the last pieces of his political vision, bringing all his ideas together with clarity. He looks closely at Italy itself, a land he loves deeply, a land that suffered from division, corruption, and foreign domination. He writes not only as a political thinker, but as a citizen who wants to see his country strong and united. This emotional foundation gives the final chapters a special power. He explains that Italy lacked strong leadership. Too many rulers depended on mercenaries. Too many rulers feared decisive action. Too many rulers allowed foreign powers to shape the future of the land. Because of this, Italy remained vulnerable. Machiavelli believed that only a bold and prepared prince, someone who understood all the lessons in The Prince, could save the nation from chaos. He turns these political observations into universal lessons. A leader must recognize the moment when history opens a door. Sometimes the world becomes unstable. Old powers fall. New powers rise. People search for security, for direction, for someone who can guide them out of confusion. This moment, he says, is rare. But when it comes, the prince must act with courage. If he hesitates, the moment disappears and the possibility is lost forever. Machiavelli believes that fortune tests leaders by offering them opportunities disguised as difficulties. A crisis may seem terrifying, but may also be a chance for a strong leader to rise, to shape the future, and to build something new. The prince who understands this finds meaning in struggle. He does not fear the unknown. He prepares for it. He also shows how virtue, what he calls virtue, shapes great leadership. Virtue is not simple morality. It is strength, intelligence, discipline, and the ability to shape circumstances instead of being shaped by them. A leader with virtue stands firm during hardship. He controls his fear. He observes carefully. He chooses wisely. Fortune may throw obstacles in his path, but his inner power allows him to overcome them. At the same time, Machiavelli does not deny the power of fortune. Even the greatest leaders can be struck down by unexpected events. But those who prepare, study history, control their armies, and understand their people reduce the influence of luck. They become masters of their own fate. As he moves toward his final message, Machiavelli speaks about the emotional strength of a leader. A prince must remain calm during storms. He must make decisions when others panic. He must hold structure when others fall into confusion. The people look to him for certainty. If he loses control, the entire state follows him into chaos. But if he remains steady, the people feel safe. Their hearts relax. Their fears dissolve. This emotional balance is as important as military strength or strategy. He closes the lessons with a call for courage. Leadership, he says, is not for the fearful. It demands action, determination, and a deep understanding of human nature. A prince who embraces these teachings becomes not only a ruler, but a source of stability in a fragile world. He becomes a figure of order in a landscape of uncertainty. And behind all these ideas stands a simple truth. Power is not given, it is built. It is protected through discipline, wisdom, and resilience. This is the world Machiavelli invites us to understand. When I reach the end of The Prince, I always pause for a moment, because beneath all the strategies, the warnings, and the sharp observations, there is something very human. There is a reminder that leadership is not only about politics. It is about understanding people, facing fear, taking responsibility, and accepting the weight of difficult choices. It is about becoming strong enough inside to guide others through uncertainty. As you reflect on this journey, think about the moments in your own life when you must be brave, moments when you must stand firm, moments when you must make decisions even when you feel unsure. Machiavelli teaches that strength is not born from perfection. It is born from clarity. When you understand yourself and understand the world around you, your choices become more grounded. Your steps become more confident. Your mind becomes more calm. Thank you for listening with me. Thank you for slowing down, breathing deeply, and giving yourself this time to learn something meaningful. And remember, every time you listen with an open mind, you grow. If you enjoyed this story, stay close to our channel. Here at English Listening Practice Hub, you can relax, improve your English, and explore powerful ideas from the world's greatest books. The more you listen, the more natural the language becomes. The more stories you hear, the easier learning feels. So take a moment, subscribe, and come back for the next journey. We will keep growing step by step, one story at a time. And every time you listen, learning becomes easier.